So this is a talk about privacy amplification. Let me start by explaining what privacy amplification is. So the setting here is that you have two parties, Alice and Bob, and they each share some weak secret X. And by weak, we mean that X is guaranteed to have some min entropy, but it could be far from uniform. Okay, and they exchange messages over a channel that is not only observed, but is also controlled by an adversary Eve, so she can change the messages arbitrarily. And the goal is to agree, for Alice and Bob to agree on a secret key R, and specifically they should each output the same key, and that key should be uniform, conditioned on what Eve sees, namely the messages in the protocol. And I'll just mention at the beginning here, we're talking about information theoretic security. In fact, I think that's the title of this session. So there's no computational assumptions. Everything is information theoretic. Okay, so privacy amplification is a very well-motivated problem. It allows you to base symmetric key cryptography on weak secrets. So pick your favorite primitive. You run a privacy amplification protocol first, and then with the secret key you obtain, you can implement that primitive. Okay, and there's lots of reasons why two parties might share imperfect keys. So first of all, the keys may have just been generated from some imperfect source of randomness, like biometrics or human memorizable passwords. Or the keys may be compromised in some way. So for example, by a side channel attack. One model that is going to be, I'm going to come back to at the end of the talk, is the bounded retrieval model. And the idea here is that Alice and Bob each have a huge key, so like gigabytes of key. Some virus may have downloaded some portion of that key, but the key still has some entropy. And the goal in the bounded retrieval model is to extract many session keys over time from this weak key X. Okay, so in addition to being well-motivated, this is also a very well-studied problem. So there's lots of beautiful work preceding this one showing how to obtain more and more optimal privacy amplification protocols. The parameters that are usually optimized are the number of rounds, so the number of message exchanges that Alice and Bob need to make, and also the entropy loss of the protocol. So here, entropy loss means the entropy that you started with, the entropy of X, minus the length of the uniform key that you output. But there's many other natural goals for privacy amplification that would be nice to have. So a few of them are here. So source privacy, the idea with source privacy is that not only should Eve not learn the secret key that Alice and Bob agree on, but in fact, she shouldn't learn any useful information about the weak secret X. There's also a notion of reusability in which you might want to extract many keys over time, and so you want to use the same secret X to extract many session keys over time. And there's also a notion of post-application robustness. So the first two I'm going to talk more about. I'll just say this about post-application robustness. The idea is that even if one party terminates first, and even if Eve receives the key for that party, she still shouldn't be able to force the other party to have a different key. This notion has been somewhat glossed over in some previous works. In our work, we make it explicit, and you can see the details in the paper. Okay, so what do we give in this work? We give new protocols for privacy amplification that achieve some of the goals that I just mentioned. So in particular, we give the first two-round source private protocol that has optimal entropy loss. And we also give the first protocol in the bounded retrieval model that extracts the optimal number of keys from the weak secret X. Okay, I'm going to say more about each of those results. But the general approach in the paper is to give sort of generic transformations on privacy amplification protocols. And this allows us to leverage a lot of the previous work to achieve these goals while at the same time minimizing the sort of more natural or more standard goals of few rounds and low entropy loss. Okay, so this is the outline for the rest of the talk. I'm going to start by going through an overview of some of the previous privacy amplification protocols. Okay, so let's start in the case of the passive adversary. So this is where Eve sees the message, but she doesn't modify it. Okay, so in this case, the solution is very simple. You just use what's called a randomness extractor. So Alice chooses a seed S at random, sends it to Bob. They each extract from X using that seed S. And the definition of a randomness extractor gives you the security, right? So randomness extractor says that the output looks uniform, even conditioned on the seed, which Eve sees. Okay, so in the passive adversary, this is a very simple one-round solution. But in the active setting, Eve may change the seed S, so this no longer works. So this is a template for a 2-round protocol in the active adversary setting. So this template's originally due to the work of Dodis and Wicks. And the idea is as follows. So Alice again sends a seed S, but this time Bob is going to use it to extract a key K for a MAC. And then Bob is going to choose his own seed W, compute the MAC of that, and send W and the MAC over to Alice. And then they're both going to extract using W to get the key, to get the key R that they're going to use. Okay? So you can show, in fact, that if Eve is passive in the first round, this protocol is secure because Alice and Bob will each extract the same MAC key, and then the security of the MAC gives you what you want. But of course, there's no reason to assume that Eve is passive in the first round. And indeed, if Eve modifies the seed S to S prime to give Bob some different key K prime, the MAC that Bob computes may allow Eve to forge the MAC that she gives to Alice and allow them and force them to agree on different keys. Okay, so to get around this problem, or to solve this problem, Dodis and Wicks introduced the notion of a non-malleable extractor. And here, a non-malleable extractor means that even if Eve sees the output of the extractor on some related key, related seed S prime, she still can't, Alice's key K still looks uniform to her, and so she can't forge the MAC. Okay, so this is the, a very widely used template preceding our work. And here are a few protocols that use this template. So first of all, the work of Dodis and Wicks gave this template, but also showed non-constructively that non-malleable extractors exist. And so they have a protocol that works from any starting entropy, so X can have any entropy, and has optimal entropy loss. But because it's non-constructive, this is an inefficient protocol. Then there were several works that gave constructions of non-malleable extractors. These are also efficient. They also have optimal entropy loss, but the downside here is that these require the starting entropy of X to be quite high. So the entropy rate needs to be about a half. In the recent construction of Lee, this was improved to an entropy rate slightly below a half, but still constant. And then going back to the work of Dodis and Wicks, they also showed that non-malleable extractors can be replaced with a weaker notion that's called look-ahead extractor. And there they also give an efficient protocol. Here the entropy loss is slightly worse, namely quadratic in the security parameter. And again, also the starting entropy of X needs to be quadratic in the security parameter. And the entropy loss part of this was recently improved by Lee to get the optimal linear in the security parameter. Okay, so these are privacy amplification protocols preceding our work. And so now let me tell you about 2 of our results. Okay, so first in the setting of source privacy, let me explain what I mean. I mentioned just informally at the beginning. The idea of source privacy is that not only can Eve not learn the secret keys R that Alice and Bob agree on, she in fact can't learn any useful information about the weak secret X. Another way of stating this is that she cannot learn any a priori specified function of X. Okay, and so this is formalized by saying that for any 2 distributions X and X prime that have sufficient min entropy, the distribution of the protocol transcript and the secret keys is statistically close in either case. Okay, and one motivation for this is to allow the user, Alice and Bob, to use the same weak secret X over time and derive many session keys over time. Okay, so in this work, we have 2 main results on source privacy. The first is a generic transformation that shows how to add source privacy to any existing privacy amplification protocol. And in particular, we show if you have any 2-round PA protocol, you can transform it into a 4-round protocol that has source privacy, and the other parameters remain about the same as before. So this generalizes a construction of Bowman and Fair, who also gave a 4-round privacy amplification protocol that achieves source privacy. But we also observe that for non-malleable extractor-based protocols, like the ones that I showed you, you can actually do better. You can save on the round. So specifically, we show how to turn any non-malleable extractor into a 2-round source private protocol that achieves optimal entropy loss. Okay, and so here's a table. These are essentially all the source private protocols that are known. So there's an older protocol of Dodis et al., which I didn't mention. It's a 1-round protocol which has kind of poor entropy loss, which is, and requires high starting entropy. This is known to be necessary for one-round protocols. It's not observed that it's source private, but we observe in this paper that it is. Then there's the work of Bowman and Fair that I just mentioned that give a 4-round protocol for pretty low starting entropy, but with entropy loss quadratic in the security parameter. And then the next 3 are in our work. So the third line is applying the generic transformation to a protocol of Lie. So we also use 4 rounds there, but we get optimal entropy loss linear in the security parameter. And then again, using any non-malleable extractor, we can get a 2-round protocol with optimal entropy loss. And in particular, this non-constructively shows that there is a source private protocol from any starting entropy with optimal entropy loss. Okay, so I'm going to briefly walk through the 2-round protocol. So recall the protocol of Dodis and Wicks that I just mentioned that uses non-malleable extractors. So immediately you can see that this is not a source private protocol because Eve chooses the seed S prime that Bob gets, and therefore she influences the tag T prime that he sends and may learn some information about X. Okay, so the solution here is to mask the MAC that Bob sends using essentially a one-time pad. So this is the same approach that was used by Bowman and Fair, but we derive the one-time pad slightly differently than they do, and specifically, we get the one-time pad by doing a fresh extraction from X with a seed that Bob chooses. And so Bob then sends the seed for the one-time pad. He also applies the pad to the MAC and sends it to Alice, who can then check these things. So with this protocol, if the protocol is secure, source privacy is actually immediate because if the keys are uniform to Eve, then you can also show that the rest of what she sees is basically uniform as well. However, this protocol may no longer be secure because now the addition of this one-time pad may allow Eve to forge the messages to Alice and cause her to accept a different key. And the solution here is to use a strengthening of non-malleable extractors, which are called adaptive non-malleable extractors. So these were first informally introduced by Dodis and Yu. And let me just explain what those are. So recall a non-malleable extractor. The adversary sees a seed Y for the extractor. She chooses a new seed, sees the output of that, and then has to distinguish the output on the original seed from uniform. So with an adaptive non-malleable extractor, the change is that the adversary actually sees what she has to distinguish first. So she sees the seed Y, and then either a uniform string or the output of the extractor. Then she gets to choose the new seed and see that, and then she has to decide uniform or output of the extractor. So we show, in fact, that any non-malleable extractor is also an adaptive non-malleable extractor with a 2 to the m loss in security. And here, note that m is actually the size of the extra information that the adversary sees. So these parameters are what you'd expect, and the proof is fairly intuitive. Okay, so in the time I have left, let me mention our results in the bounded retrieval model. And again, let me say a little bit more specifically what this model is. So in the bounded retrieval model, Alice and Bob share some huge secret X, so think of many gigabytes. And we want to allow that maybe one of their machines got infected by some virus that downloaded some of the key, but couldn't get all of it. So the key has been compromised, but there's still a lot of entropy remaining. And Alice and Bob want to use this key X over time to extract many session keys. Okay, so the requirements for protocols in the bounded retrieval model are 2. One, the protocol needs to be locally computable. So we don't want to have to look at the whole secret X each time we compute the protocol because it might be huge. And the other is that the protocol should have high residual entropy. So residual entropy is related to the notion of entropy loss that I was saying, but the idea here is the entropy that X has left over after the protocol should be high. Okay, so our main result in the bounded retrieval model is the following transformation. We show how to take any 2-round privacy amplification protocol and turn it into one that has optimal residual entropy. So optimal means that you lose only a linear factor in the security parameter at the expense of degrading the security by a polynomial amount. Okay, and this allows us to extract an optimal number of keys, namely the entropy of X divided by the security parameter. And the best protocol in the bounded retrieval model before this was due to Dodis and Wicks, and that allowed extracting fewer number of keys, so namely entropy of x divided by quadratic in the security parameter. Okay, so the proof technique that we use to prove this theorem is what we call a receipt protocol. So a receipt protocol is essentially like an interactive MAC protocol, but here the party who speaks first chooses the message. So normally in an interactive MAC protocol, you think of the party speaking second choosing the message. Here we think of the party speaking first choosing the message. So Alice chooses a message, sends it to Bob along with some randomness. Bob computes a receipt and sends it back to Alice. And the security property is that if Eve changes the message mu that Bob receives, she should not be able to forge the receipt back to Alice to make her accept. Okay, so the main lemma in this proof is actually showing how to reduce entropy, increase residual entropy for receipt protocols. So we show that if you have any receipt protocol, you can get a receipt protocol with optimal residual entropy, again at the expense of degrading the security by a polynomial amount. For the proof, we basically just apply a two-source extractor to the receipt that Bob sends. So this technique we took from Lee, who also used a two-source extractor to reduce entropy of privacy amplification protocols. And so once you have this lemma, the proof is relatively straightforward. Any privacy amplification protocol is immediately a receipt protocol. And then we can get an improved receipt protocol with optimal entropy loss. And then we can turn it back into a privacy amplification protocol with optimal entropy loss. And if you plug in the locally computable PA protocol of Dodis and Wicks, then what you get out is a protocol that works in the bounded retrieval model. So it's locally computable, and it has optimal entropy loss. So we can extract the optimal number of keys. Okay, let me just make one note at the end. This is kind of like a fun problem. So another solution to getting a protocol in the bounded retrieval model would be to get a locally computable non-malleable extractor. So the non-malleable extractor protocols, in fact, already have optimal residual entropy, but the problem is that there's no known locally computable non-malleable extractor. And in fact, even the probabilistic existence is open. So before we had constructions of non-malleable extractors, we knew that they existed. With locally computable, we don't even know if that's true. So I think this problem is completely open, and it's kind of fun. Okay, so I'm going to conclude just with the summary there, and thank you very much.